Hi, and welcome to Hull and Hull TV. I'm Dana O'Brien, and I'm joined by Ian Hull and Suzana Popovic-Montag, partners at Hull and Hull LLP, an innovative law firm that practices exclusively in estate, trust, and capacity litigation. Here on Hull and Hull TV, we're exploring the issues around estate planning that affect you. Ian and Suzana, even a carefully thought-out will can be subject to family squabbles and litigation. So to avoid a fight, help us understand why it happens. Suzana, I suspect a lot of people don't understand why it's important to have a will.
You're right, Dana. In fact, in Canada, less than 50% of people actually do have a will. And the reason for that is, in many cases, people just don't see it as a priority. They think either they haven't amassed a significant estate and they don't need a will, or they're young, they have no children, they figure that things will just go automatically to their spouse if they're married. And the reality is that may not always be the case. And in other situations, people are just maybe too busy to think about creating a will and don't want to spend the time or the resources to actually prepare one.
Ian, what are some of the other reasons?
Well, the ultimate reason that wills are not often made by the clients is that they quite naturally put it down low on their own personal priority list. And they also allow their advisors to sort of distract them and let them push it off the priority table. For example, we'll often find clients who will say to us, look, I can't come in yet, my accountant still owes me a little information, or my insurance advisor hasn't got back to me on some of the information I need. And I always tell my clients, look, that information is usually a one phone call away. Let's start to make this a priority for yourself so that you don't find a tragic situation where you get into trouble or you pass away much faster than you were ever considering it, and your whole estate plan then is in chaos because you've waited too long.
What about keeping a will up to date? Does that help avoid litigation, Suzana?
Many people actually think that creating a will is a one-time deal. And the reality is that many changes in circumstances, your personal, your financial circumstances, may in fact warrant a change to your estate plan. And in terms of classic illustrations, when there is a marriage or a remarriage or a divorce, when perhaps beneficiaries are no longer alive or they become incapable, if you've got a significant change in your economic circumstances, all of these kinds of situations would incite someone to revisit their plan and make sure that it's still kind of accurate.
Ian, any other reasons why a will should be updated?
Well, I think from my perspective, a will is an opportunity to revisit your personal lifetime finances as well. And it's a chance for you to sit down and take a look at where you're at financially. So it doesn't ever hurt to see where your liabilities are and where your assets are and see where they might be reallocated. I typically tell my clients every 5 years it's worthwhile redoing your will, or at least revisiting your will, just from the legal standpoint, because the laws will change. But from a financial standpoint, there could be a change in circumstances not related to your personal circumstances, but just the markets or some sort of events, and your gifting doesn't actually match up to where you're at financially. And it's important to revisit that, or else you're going to create new problems at the other end of the day.
Suzana, what's another reason why a will might be challenged?
I think that people are reluctant to spend money on obtaining professional advice, and even more reluctant on spending money on lawyers. And so in many cases, I think cost is a factor, and that may lead to wills that are perhaps inadequate or in fact completely faulty. You really do want to have someone who's an estate planning professional be involved and who understands and has experience with your particular situation. At the end of the day, I think it's really a cheap form of insurance to ensure that your estate plan is as you hoped it would be.
So if it's a cheap form of insurance, why are some people reluctant to get professional advice?
I think it really comes back to Ian's point about the fact that for most people, it's just not a priority. They may view their estate as not being significant enough to warrant the need for a will. They may be young. Many people under 50 consider that they don't have to pay a lot of attention to this. They've got plenty of time to deal with it later on. And people who don't have children, for instance, just don't make it a priority as well. I think that, coupled with the fact that people don't want to necessarily spend money on creating a will and paying for lawyers, is really the reason for that.
Ian, there are kits that people can buy to draw up their own will. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, as our practice is mostly focused on contentious litigation, I encourage anybody to do the kits because they are almost always problematic. But on a serious note, they are problematic from the standpoint that there are very special rules that have to be followed, A, at the time of signing, and B, in terms of the language you use. So while the kits can be an effective tool, they are often misused, not by any malicious purposes, but just by virtue of the fact that the people doing them are not legally trained, and there are going to be mistakes. And some of these mistakes can be fundamental and, quite frankly, tremendously expensive at the other end of the day.
So when it comes to estate planning, keep your will up to date and get professional advice. Ian and Suzana, thank you. And thanks for joining us on Hull & Hull TV.